yeah, my name is Blake Mizerany. I work at Heroku. How many of you before coming here have heard of Heroku? Oh, cool. All right. How many of you have used it? Yeah? Okay, cool. I also, back in 2007, wrote a micro framework called Sinatra. How many of you have heard of Sinatra or used it? Awesome. All right, cool. So all of you guys are really familiar with Sinatra then? And you guys have, no, this guy, okay. Who's very familiar with it? Okay, so cool. I'm just going to write, so what I kind of want to do is I just want to, I want to write a quick demo app. I'm going to write a to-do list in Sinatra just to kind of show off some of the powerful extensions that are available for it now in the Extension Api. And then I also want to deploy it to Heroku and just kind of show off some of the cool stuff that we're doing. I don't know, and then just answer questions. So I just want to get started. How many of you guys know HAML? Yeah. Okay, sweet, cool. I'm just going to use HAML because I really hate writing HTML. So, all right, so let's take a look. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to write the world's most simplest Sinatra app ever. So let's require Sinatra. That's it. So we'll run that. We'll hit WebKit, open that up, localhost, and boom. So here we have Sinatra telling us that it doesn't understand this route. It's not found, right? So we need to implement this route and in order to get a hello world. So let me just write the quick hello world. So in Sinatra, you're mapping HTTP to implementation. And what I mean by that is if we look here, the get, that is our request method, right? So I'm mapping. How many of you have seen a raw HTTP request? You guys know what that looks like, right? I mean, this is basically what it looks like. I mean, a raw HTTP request, this is going to map to this. Let's see here. This would be the request, right? So Sinatra tries to emulate this. If I want to map, I want to map my implementation to the route. So if this was the request I was going to get, this is the implementation I'm going to have. So I just whatever you return in the lambda will be your response. So let's kill that off. Run that again, and then now you can see that we're producing output, right? Like we're actually responding to that route. So we're going to build the world's greatest to-do list in under 10 minutes, and then I'm going to deploy it. Sure, go ahead.
Is it because you added that route, why you had to restart Sinatra?
Yeah, you don't have to restart it. You can use Shotgun. We pulled reloading out of Sinatra because it's the biggest pain in the butt ever. And Shotgun, how many of you guys know about Shotgun? Okay, cool. Here I can show you really fast. So Shotgun was written by Ryan Tomeko to solve the problem that we had in Sinatra, which was reloading. And reloading, trying to use auto-load, trying to, the way Rails does loading, the way Merb did it, it's just awful. And so he set out to change that and to just give a reloading capability to any rack app in general. So Shotgun does just that. So if we run SD on port 4567, server thin, I think that's what it does. Yeah. So that'll run Sinatra on 4567. So here we've got the response. You see the response coming back, but if I change it, you can see that it changes. So what Shotgun actually does is it loads up the application, or it loads up rack just to the point of rack, right? Getting rack required, and then it uses that as a baseline and then begins forking. So every request forks. It kind of works like Passenger, only it's using Ruby's fork method, which is really dangerous, so you would never use this for production. But basically what it's doing is it's got that baseline, the request comes in, it forks, loads up the entire rack file in the environment, runs the request, sends the response back into the main process, and the main process responds with the tuple. So each request is forking. So it's always like it reloads the environment every single time because it's in a different process. Yeah. Yeah, so, what's that? Yeah, so go to github.com, it's rtomeko, and Shotgun. So everybody got that? So if we hit that, why is GitHub so slow? Anyway, that's the link. Did you get that? All right, cool. So back to the to-do list application. So I'm going to, so in Sinatra, views you just put in a views directory, right? They're all just, just like this. Actually, I'm going to do it from here. So let's do list dot, I'm sorry, I was going to do haml. So if we do list dot haml, I'm just going to bring in, I'm going to bring in the one from, all right, don't look because this is the finished product. All right, so you guys, oh, well, that's in to do. Are you guys familiar with in-file templates in Sinatra? Using in-file templates? All right, here, I'll do this with in-file templates. Let's open back up. Let's do SD. So how many of you are familiar with this in Ruby? This macro? Okay. So for those of you who have never seen this, what end does is says anything I type after end, that's the end of the script. So Ruby no longer interprets it. So anything under end in your file gets stored in a constant called data, all uppercase, and then you have that string to do whatever you want with. So it's kind of a cool little Ruby trick, but Sinatra takes advantage of this and allows me to do in-file templates because I'm a big fan of keeping things simple and in one file. And because my template isn't rather large for this, I can simply just put that there. We mark it up by saying that template name is list. And now we have the template list. So we can rm-rf our views directory and say erb haml list. I'll need to require haml first. So let's do that. And let's hit that. So we're going to have an error, obviously, because there's no, let's go back and let's go take a look back at that template. This is line 19 of the template. So, or line 19 of the file. So if we look here, it's trying to iterate over to-dos, right, to list them out in the list. So I'm going to do error-driven development. I'm just going to look for errors on this, whenever I run it, and then we're going to fix them. Because writing tests for demo purposes is really, really boring. So, in order to fix this problem, we need to set to-dos. And the way it's looking at to-dos is it's an array of hashes, right? And it's only looking for a describe key. So let's just go ahead and add that. I'm just going to mock this out. We'll say testing. And close that off. And we hit it, right? So now we have the to-do list app, right? And it's got the testing, the first one. So what we want to be able, so now, now we want to be able to enter to-do lists, right, or to-do tasks. So let's try make bed. We submit that. Sinatra tells me I don't know what this is. So if you look here, it's saying that it doesn't understand post slash, right? So we're going to go ahead and implement that. No, not yet. I'll pay you soon. All right. So let's do post slash. Do end, and let's take a look at the params. See what params are coming in. Oh, restart. So we'll resend, and now we can see that okay, I've implemented that method, and I'm inspecting the parameters that are coming in, right? So obviously, I want to do something with these parameters. And if I'm going to keep track of to-do items, I'm going to have to put them in a database. So typically, you can use something, pick your favorite ORM. There's nothing that Sinatra doesn't favor any one over the other. I personally favor SQL over any of the others. So I'm going to use the Sinatra SQL extension. Ryan Tomeko wrote this, so under R Tomeko, you can see Sinatra-SQL. So in order to run that, we'll do a gem install Sinatra-SQL. I already have it installed, so I don't need to do that. And then once that's installed, I require Sinatra SQL. So what Sinatra SQL allows me to do is it immediately installs some really nice utility methods for me. So I can simply access my database just like this. Right? I'm going to stream in params, and then I'm going to redirect to slash. So again, error-driven development. We'll run it. We'll resubmit the form. And it's going to tell me that there's no such table describes. And I didn't want describes. It needs to be to-dos, sorry. But you get the picture. It would say no such table to-dos. So let's write a quick migration. Migration, create to-dos to tp.create table, to-dos to primary key is ID. And we have a text field called description. Let's end that off, end that off. So now, when we run this, whoops, sorry. Well, okay, so So take a look right here. You can see that it ran the migration create to-dos, right? So I now have that table available to me. So again, let's try this again. Let's resubmit. And boom. So things are working. I can submit the form, right? But I'm not seeing the list. So I simply need to be able to query the database and then iterate over each to-do list just to show it off. So let's go to, so right here on to-dos, we'll get rid of our mock. We'll say database to-dos. And Ruby st. And so now we have a working to-do list, right? I'm not done. I'm not going to do delete. I'm not going to do any of that because that's just more fluff and boring. So again, a raise of hands. How many of you deployed something to Heroku? Okay, for those of you who kept your hands down, get one person. Tell me how long do you think it's going to take me to deploy this to a server and be able to scale it up and down to like 60 thins and then bring it back down to 1 thin, have a database, have everything. How long do you think that's going to take? Just a guess. Anybody? 10 minutes? Anybody think it would take longer? I mean, if I have like 60 dynos and I want to, well, not dynos, 60 thins and I want to scale them across a cluster of 30, how long would that take? All right. So, does anybody have a timer? I'll do it in under 2 minutes. So I'm going to go into getsh. If you haven't used getsh, take a look at it. It's pretty awesome. So we create a Git repo. I'll add SD. I also need to create a config RU. And you guys are you guys all familiar with rackup files? If not, I can explain it in a minute. So okay, well, I'll explain this in a minute. So I just need to tell rack that that Sinatra application is the application that I want to run. So we'll add the config RU, and we'll commit with a message saying initial commit, right? So once I install the Heroku gem, I can say Heroku Create. So this is the, stop the timer for a minute, I'm going to explain something. So when we do a Heroku Create, what this is doing for me is creating an application, and I don't know why it's not working. Should. No. Oh, I don't have. What is this? I need this one? I've got internet on a stick. Just do that. Huh? I've got internet on a stick. Don't leave home without it. All right. All right, let's connect to this. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. How many of you guys have seen the Sinatra Extension Api? All of you? Okay. So for all of you guys that do Sinatra, I would love to see more extensions. Sinatra SQL is a really great example. If you take a look at sinatrarb.com, under documentations, you can go to extensions, and or the writing extensions, under more documentation. And there's a really nice, really great documentation on doing that. So I've also, under my GitHub account, Mizerany, I have Sinatra Redis, Sinatra Active Record. So those are some fun ones to take a look at and play with. All right, so back to Heroku. Let's do a Heroku. Let me just list. See if I even get. If I can get a list. Okay. All right. So let's do a Heroku Create. So when I do a Heroku Create, what Heroku is doing for me is creating a Git repository for me, setting up a Postgres database for me, and all of this is free, right? I haven't even given Heroku my credit card yet, and it's already given me 5 meg database and 1 thin ready to go for me to deploy to. And what the Heroku gem also does for you is that you can see it says Git remote Heroku added. So it's added a remote to my Git repository, right? So a word of caution, the Heroku Git repository is purely for deployment. It is not for collaboration. You use GitHub for collaboration. If you push something to this repo, what I'm going to do in a minute, you're going to notice that it's going to deploy it. So don't push things to this repo unless you want it going live. So let's do a git push Heroku master. And this is going to fail because I'm going to need the Sinatra SQL gem, right? So yeah, this is a slow connection. Do I still? OK, there it goes. All right, so let's take a look here. It's detected that I have a Sinatra app. It's compiling something called a slug. A slug is a read-only file system. You can think of it as kind of a special archive, right? There's some special sauce in there. It's attempting to launch the app, right? So now that it's launched the app, it's realized that it can't start it because there's something wrong, and I need to go take a look here. And what it's telling me is that I want to visit Freezing Warrior number 30, which is the haiku name that it gives me. If I don't give it a name, it'll just come up with a name for me. And it's telling me to go do this, to go see the crash log. So let's go ahead and open that up. I want to take a look. But I can tell you right now, it's just going to tell me that Sinatra SQL isn't installed. So it tells me that, so you can see here, no such file to load Sinatra SQL. So I need to install a gem. So in order to install a gem, I fill out a gem manifest file. So you say there's a .gems file. So we'll do .gems. And I simply just say Sinatra SQL. Here I can do -s for my source, -v for version. But it all works. You just imagine that it's gem install without the gem install, right? It's got all the options that gem install comes with. So now that I've done that, let's add the .gems to the repository. Commit -gem. We'll say gems and git push Heruka master. So it's going to attempt to launch it again for me. So here you can see that it's installed the Sinatra SQL gem. It took it from RubyForge. It's installed 2 gems for me because Sinatra SQL relies on the SQL ORM, and that's not installed on Heroku by default either. So it installed both gems, detected the Sinatra app, launched it, and everything says it's been successfully deployed. So now if we just hit Heroku open, or we just go back and refresh, we've got a running to-do list with a database, right? Ooh, ah. So Heroku gives you there's a whole ton of environment variables that Heroku provides you with. So let's take a look. There's a nice app we have here called mdump.heroku.com. I believe it's mdump. So here you can take a look. I mean, this gives you a nice list. This is just a regular app that was installed and just pushed up to Heroku, and it just simply dumps all the environment variables. But here you can see it's giving me all these nice, all the HTTP environment. So here's the rack environment. But down here you can see the Unix environment, and you notice that I'll have you get a database URL. So we've redacted that, but just so you can't use our database. But that database URL, so Sinatra SQL respects the database URL environment variable. If it doesn't exist, it just uses SQLite with whatever the environment name is, .db. So you saw that in my repo. I had a development.db. So because now that the cool thing about this is it just works. I pushed it up there. It just worked. I didn't have to do any work. I had no configuration. I didn't have to set up any servers. I didn't have to run any recipes. I didn't have to contact local sysadmins or hire a sysadmin to watch all of my servers for me. So let's say I just got, this is my to-do list for Facebook, and I just made number 2 on Facebook and just came under load. I had no idea. All I know is that I'm seeing tweets about, oh man, it's running, to-do list on Facebook is running kind of slow. So Not anymore. Set my dynos to 30. I now have 30 thins running, spread across 30 different servers, just all redundant, ready. It's all scaled. Our load balancer is already notified of it in real time, and everything just works, right? You'll have to verify before you go beyond one dyno, yeah. So the cool thing, the nice thing about, the thing that I love about Heroku that's like really exciting to me is that not only is it that I can scale up that fast, but I can scale down just as fast, right? I can run the exact same command and go back down to 1, and then be back on a free account in less than a second, right? So now I'm back down to a free account. I've only got one dyno. So Facebook is over. I'm not paying for 30 different servers, right? I didn't have to set up a load balancer. I didn't have to set up Varnish. How many of you guys know about Varnish? Okay, so Varnish is a HTTP cache proxy. You get that for free with Heroku. All apps, free apps, paid apps, everybody. Everybody gets Varnish, right? So how many of you know or how to use HTTP caching or understand HTTP caching? Right, okay. HTTP caching is 40% of the HTTP spec, and most people don't understand it. They usually typically just use Rails caching, right, which does all the fragment caching, writes stuff down to a file. That stuff, I mean, you don't need that. HTTP caching has been around so long that, you know, I mean, take advantage of that instead of using the built-in Rails stuff. But I can give you a demonstration of how that works. So the thing about Varnish, though, is it's ridiculously difficult to install and configure. It's really a huge pain in the ass. But Heroku's already got it pre-installed, and it's optimized to the hills, right? It's been finely tuned for you. The whole stack is tuned to do nothing but scale the web stack. So if I want to play, so I can give you a quick demonstration of, let's go ahead and acquire Sinatra. So let's do get to time.now to s, right? So I'm going to, I've got a little command called whip that just creates whip commits for me. Excuse me. So let's push Heruka master. Actually, it's not, we don't need gems anymore too. So this is another fun thing, right? So there's two things that are going to happen here. It's going to delete all my gems because I don't need them anymore, because it's going to notice that. So to get push Heroku master. So what, in under like 3 or 5 minutes, I've deployed 3 or 4 times, right? So this is really cool. We had, have you guys heard of BestCam? It's a really cool iPhone app. But BestCam took when they came out of beta and went public, they were hosted on Heroku. And they had about 5,000 user signups instantly. They had an amazing amount of traffic, and they scaled up in just a few seconds, and they were continually pushing out fixes and bug fixes while they were taking all this load, right? And they were doing it in less than an hour. So that's like one of the coolest things that I love, like the stories I love hearing about, like when people use Heroku, is just how quickly they can just, you know, just crank things out. And because it's so easy to crank things out, we now have nearly 40,000 applications on Heroku. We have customers that are taking 500 million requests a month, and they're just doing just fine. They're sleeping very well at night. All right, so I pushed that up. Let's take a look at that. Heroku open. So here we can see that the time, right, is changing. On every single second, we're getting another. See? So with HTTP caching, or with HTTP caching, I can come in here. I can set headers. So I'm going to set the cache control header. You can take a look at. You can look this up in the spec. But basically, what I'm telling you is that this is the cache. Cache this for everybody. It's public, and I want to set the max age, and I want this to be fresh for 5 seconds. So if we take a look at it here, I don't have Varnish installed. So if we run localhost 4567, you'll see that locally it's not caching, right? Because I don't have Varnish installed. I'm not running this. I'm hitting the thin directly. But as soon as you put it behind as soon as I put it behind an HTTP cache, and done, launched, So now it's at 55, 56, 55, 50. Oh, it's because I have 2 dynos running. So the caching, so it's hitting 2 different caches, right? The 2 different, there's 2 different, we have multiple faceplates, so that's where all the traffic actually comes in through, and each one's running varnish. So I'm hitting different ones on different requests, right? But as you can see, I'm just getting 2 different numbers until 5 seconds is up, and then I get a new two new page caches. So what this allows, so this is a great way to scale out, so to avoid database hits, right? So the first line of defense that I always recommend is using HTTP caching, right? Try and get away with full page caching. Once you can no longer use that, if you need fragment caching, or you actually need you actually need some kind of smarts before you build up the request, you can use Memcache. How many of you know about Memcache? Using Memcache? Okay, great. So if I need Memcache on Heroku, I now have Memcache, right? I have this infinite resource. It's just, I don't have to worry about monitoring the servers or watching Memcache. I don't have to worry about whether or not I have enough memory. It's just automatically scaling out for me. Yeah. Oh, did it fail? No add-on by that. Oh, it's Memcache D. Sorry. That should get it. There. So I have Memcache. Yeah.
I'm looking at the site. It says 5 megabytes. For as many number of applications as you can.
5 meg for what? The database? Are you?
Can I put three tiny applications up there?
You can put as many free apps up there as you want.
How about the traffic?
The traffic?
Is that 5 megabytes of traffic too? Or?
No, you don't have to worry about the bandwidth, right? So like I said, HTTP caching comes for free. So if you can get away with doing page caching, so like blogs, or it doesn't matter. Like Ryan Tomego hosts his blog on Heroku, right? And it gets a lot of traffic. Most of the other guys that blog at Heroku all use it, but we're all just using just one dyno, because they can use the varnish full page caching. So, and they have and their blogs are under 5 megs for the database size. So, yes, they are Heroku employees, and yes, we get free apps, but even if they were just regular customers, they would still be paying no money for their blog. Yeah.
Do you guys have any built-in mechanism for intelligent scaling of dynos?
Oh, so you want like auto scaling?
Like full party N to EC2?
So basically right now it's watch New Relic. See if you're under too much load, optimize, and then you can scale up and down using the dynos command, or there's the UI interface where you can use the slider to scale up and down. But right now it's a manual process. But if you watch the blog, there's cool stuff coming.
I heard that actually if you have a lot of dynos running, after something like 8 hours, they get killed.
No, your paid dynos. Once you're a paying customer, your dynos are always hot, always hot. So free applications, we do idle out the free ones. But the thing is that if one goes idle, I mean, it just, as soon as the next request comes in, it goes hot again. I mean, there's nothing you have to do, man, and it's all automated. So. No, they're always hot right now. So the way we look at it is, if you're paying us, if you've got, yeah, no, they're just always hot. Any other, yeah.
Is there any way to describe a dyno?
Yeah, so basically a dyno is it's a dynamic process, right? So I mean, we consider dynos just thin right now, right? And it's the reason we went with that name is because when I say web server, how many of you think Apache? How many of you think thin? How many of you think mongrel? Right? Like, it's like we needed a new name for this. Like, it was just, we needed something to like distinguish what we were talking about. But here, if you go to Heroku.com, how?
Does it compare to an EC2 small instance?
What do you mean?
With dyno, you can have a certain amount of load, right?
You're running on beefy EC2 instances.
Do you have something to compare with?
Such as? If you were to have 2 small instances, I don't have the numbers on that, but I mean, if you got 2 dynos running on Heroku, you're running on 2 large instances. So, I mean, you can kind of, I mean, it's kind of easy to figure out the benchmark in your own head.
I think
But
you can say that 4 dynos is about a single core, similar to a single core.
yeah, I think that's what it is now. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we have what we call the dyno grid, right, which is just a cluster of EC2 instances, and it's constantly changing. So if you're running 2 dynos, I mean, you're running on 2 beefy boxes. You're sharing them with other people, right? But you're not. Nobody's really stepping on anybody's toes, right? Like we've got everything locked down so that you have a certain amount of resources, which I cannot disclose right now because we're still working more on like how we want to configure all that. But does that answer your question? More or less, kind of. Okay. So yeah, I know. I honestly don't have numbers right now, but I mean we can get them to you. The routing mesh is this is one of my favorite parts about Heroku. Mainly because I started working on it like almost a year ago. We wrote this routing mesh in Erlang, and one of the co-founders, Orion Henry, took the project on and continued developing on it and built in smart load balancing into the routing mesh, right? So once we had load balancing and everything into our routing mesh, it's benching faster than Nginx, right? So if you can outperform Nginx, like you're doing something ridiculously awesome, right? Because Nginx is ridiculously fast. And the reason we're able to do that is because it's just, I don't know, because it's Erlang, and Erlang's amazing. I can't really get into the secret sauce or the specialness, but so on the dyno grid, so what the routing mesh does, and this is how we scale you up and down. When requests come in, we know exactly where your app is, right? So we know exactly what domains are getting hit. And we're able to constantly track the dyno grid, and the dynos all over the place, right? If any of your dynos start misbehaving or getting out of control, we're able to just kind of shut them off and just kind of like, beat sense back into them. Same way kind of Monitor God would do. So yeah, you don't need Monit, you don't need God, you don't have to configure anything. This is an incredibly intelligent system that's meant to just scale you up and down constantly, right? So, and you're only paying for what you use, and that's enabled because of the routing mesh that we have. So, and then again, if you take a look here, you've got Memcache, you've got SQL database. It's all just straight right out of the box. The HTTP cache, Varnish, right, out of the box, free for everything. So everything you're seeing in this, you're getting for free right out of the box. So, how many of you guys have done any work with work queues, like delayed job and all that? Okay. So the key is in any web app for a responsive web app is to keep your requests under 200 milliseconds, right? And if you can keep your requests under 200 milliseconds, and you know that you have on 200 milliseconds, you can take, I think, what is it like? Yeah, okay, so you can take about 5 requests per second, right, on one dyno. So if you're, is that right? Yeah. So no, but no, you can take a lot more than that. What's that?
You can take more than that.
Yeah, you can take a lot more than that. But if you know exactly what numbers your responses are getting out, you'll know exactly how many requests per second your app can actually take, or one dyno can take. So then you know that if you're coming under heavy load or you're getting more requests than one can take, you can scale up and scale down, and you know exactly how many to have, right? Versus kind of guessing and saying, I don't know, give me like 20 more. Let's just see if it works. But anyway, so that's where I was going with this. So work queues. Anything that goes over 200 requests is basically you want to procrastinate, right? You want to just give up immediately. You take the job, you take the work that needs to be done, put it in a queue, and then respond immediately to the user and say, using like a redirect, and you redirect them back to another path, another URL that says, this is where you need to go get your work when it's your stuff when it's done, right? So in Heroku we have DJ, delayed job. So again, add-ons, add DJ, right? So once you've added the delayed job, you now have a running delayed job process that's constantly sitting there working and doing work for you. Let's see if it's ever going to finish. This connection is slow. No, delayed job is it's $15 a month total, but I mean, if you're not using it all the time, I mean, it's billed by the hour. So I don't know why this is acting so funny. Let me kill that off. So now I have delayed job. If you need cron jobs, how many of you use cron jobs or try to use cron? Okay, you guys all know about cron jobs. Instead of filling, how many of you have ever dealt with dealing with a cron tab file, right? It's totally archaic. There's a total science to it. But I still, to this day, can't remember the syntax. But I don't have to worry about it anymore because if I have a rake file, I can simply add task cron. And now I have a cron job, right? And I can tell Heroku, as an add-on, I can say add add-ons, add nightly cron. What's that? Yeah, well, okay, you get the point. So say nightly cron, right? So now what Heroku is going to do is every night it's going to pick one of my dynos somewhere on one of the instances that one of them are running on, and it's going to go to its file system and then run rake, go into its directory and run rake cron for you. So now you have cron jobs. You can also have hourly, but hourly is an additional price. That's as granular as we get right now. There may or may not be a blog post of a guy who found out a way to get more granular with using delayed job and cron jobs on Heroku. So if you need minute cron jobs, there may or may not be a blog post on how to do that on Heroku. So, does anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, what about custom background processing that you might need?
You mean like maybe some special Erlang thing or some C code or just just some kind of daemon?
Like we in our app we have most of our processing goes into background processing. So we have massive bursty jobs that need to get done. So we'll have a large job that needs to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Needs to submit. We send messages basically. So it needs to send 20,000 messages in a few minutes.
So you want to do?
I don't want to do 20,000 jobs. The 20,000 is the one job. So I need a process that's constantly running and doing this.
Oh, that's running. I mean, you could use delayed job for that right now. If you're looking for anything more custom than that, honestly, all Heroku really does for delayed job is run rake jobs : work. So, I mean, if you can kind of fill that in with whatever you want. I'm not really supposed to tell you that, but. Yeah. You can just queue things up that way.
What about custom search engine like Solar?
I
think you guys do Sphinx, right?
We do not. No. Wait. Yeah. No. No, we don't. Yeah, use Solar. Spawn up an EC2 instance and run Solar on it. So that's another key is that if you're going to run Solar, you obviously need the URL for Solar, right? And you don't want to hard code that into your repository. So in order to do that, there is a command configs add, and then you can say like Solar URL equals, and then say HTTP. And then when you set that, I don't know, we'll go foo.com. So this will add. Sorry. So that'll add that, and then I can pull that out of the environment variables. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you for Heroku. I think it's cool and everything. I love it.
Thanks.
I also thought the IDE was really cool, the Heroku Garden.
Oh, yeah.
I was wondering if there's any possibility you guys open sourcing that anytime soon?
There was talk about it, but it was one of those things where it was written so long ago and it was a big prototype. It was just kind of a proof of concept that we don't really want. It's not something. It would take you probably an entire weekend just to get like running, right?
Yeah.
So.
There's so much cool code in there, the debugger, like all that stuff.
Yeah, no, it was really cool, and one of like our proudest moments was learning Rails, the O'Reilly book, chapter 1, page 1, use Heroku, right? And then they had a big screenshot of the in-browser IDE where you could learn Rails, and a lot of academia, that was like a huge niche that was constantly using it. Unfortunately, we chose to, well, unfortunately for the IDE, we chose to go more production. There wasn't really anybody using it for like production stuff. I mean, anybody who's writing production apps is usually using their own text editor that they prefer, and they like to do development locally. So, but Bespin is a really cool. Have you seen Bespin? Yeah. Okay, so I mean, I don't know. Maybe one day we might have Bespin support. I don't know. So.
I noticed you guys I watched the early
Oh, okay.
So you've chosen it for your routing mesh.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys consider supporting services like AMQP or Chicken Jabber?
I noticed that on the bottom of the page, I think MQP was on there.
I was going to say that, yeah. It's
So you do support it?
very, very soon. Very soon. Yeah, no, we're really big fans of AMQP. AMQP is what runs is the nervous system of Heroku.
What about that find smoke or electricity? With Ruby?
Oh yeah, Tom's or electricity. Mm-hmm.
Is that something you do that would run well on your
I mean, you'd have to have an Erlang process running, right, in order, for that to even be usable. And right now, there's really no support for that. But electricity is a great project, so you would, like I said, you'd have to have like an Erlang process running in order for you to be able to use your electricity. And currently, we can't run Erlang processes, so custom ones for users. So, yeah.
Is there any chance you doing something like using like a lot and stuff to allow more like integration with like GitHub, so you could, for example, deploy directly from GitHub to Heroku? I don't know, like if you want to write tools that are interacting with Heroku, I feel like
We've got ideas. Watch the blog.
About using Google Maps or something like that, where you have to provide an IP address.
Okay, so along the similar problem, a lot of people writing Twitter bots have the same issue, right? Because it has the throttling on Twitter. So we don't assign you a static IP. You have no idea where you're coming from, and you might, if you have dynos on the same box as other people hitting Google Maps, it's going to throttle the total sum of all that traffic. Or, well, I don't know, well, Google Maps, can you finish your question? We can't give you an IP. We have no idea where you're going to be, right? Like you're constantly moving around from server to server depending on what's going on.
I think the URL is all that they ask for in Google Maps. Yeah, I think it's just a domain name.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, you can do that. You'll probably need a custom domain name for that then.
Even the Google runs all of their stats in a similar fashion, where you're never getting the same IP address twice.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would be really kind of lame for them to just say,
Oh, yeah.
You can't scale like that.
Right.
That example, Google, there are others that ask for that IP address.
Yeah. Oh, when they ask for an IP address,
The key is tied to that IP address.
I can't. No, there's no way we can give you one.
Allow people, to like integrate with company networks. They want to open a source to the firewall. Or
Okay, so I take that back. Right now we currently, like for SSL, right, you need an IP, right? You need your own IP for that. Currently, Amazon does not allow multiple instances, or one instance to have multiple IP addresses, right? So if you do need your own IP address and you need SSL, there is an option to have your own IP address, have your own server running, but it's going to cost a little bit more than typical. You'll have to pay for that instance. Yeah. We just publicly said, here's our A records. So.
Because I ran into that and have like
Yeah.
domain.com.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a way around it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
do you know what software the guys use to make their blog on Heroku?
Ryan's got his own called Wink. He doesn't really support it anymore actively. He just uses it for his own purposes. But Adam Wiggins has Scanty, which is, both of them are written in Sinatra. So yeah, you can take a look at Adam Wiggins, github.com, Adam Wiggins/Scanty. And he's got one that works with Redis, one that works with SQL. So currently he's using the one that uses Redis, just because he wanted to play with Redis one afternoon. Yeah.
For the AMQP support, are you guys just going to be providing like a vhost for RabbitMQ? That sort of what the deal's going to be? Or?
There's still that's still in the works.
Okay.
So should announce something soon. How's my battery doing? That's okay. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else I can show off? Maybe some more Sinatra or something? Go ahead.
How many of the 40,000 apps are Rails or Sinatra apps? Or people
That's a good question. We actually did run the numbers on that, and I'd have to look that up for you. I believe one of our guys did run some statistics just to see. So I honestly, I can't tell you. I don't know off the top of my head right now. But
How many of them are paying applications?
quite a bit.
Do you like ask them what's that, or do you have any idea?
I really, I can't really say right now. I honestly don't even know off the top of my head. So, but yeah, I mean, we got people taking 500 million requests, and they're not doing it on one dyno. So, I mean, I wish our system was that awesome, but it's not. You can't do it on one dyno. Yeah.
What other development environments are they typically used besides Rails or Sinatra?
We've got people using MERB. There's people just using bare rack apps. I mean, they just use rack by itself without a framework. I mean, you know, anything that's rack. You know, I mean, you can deploy Remaze. You can deploy like any of those, any as long as it's a rack-based web framework.
Rack, Ruby, not Python, not.
No, this is Ruby only. This is pure Ruby, right? So, but with that being said, one other point I want to make is with Heroku, where everything we use is open source. So, I mean, minus our routing mesh and all the management and automation code. But all the stuff that you're interacting with is all open source. There is absolutely no vendor lock-in with us. So if you start using us, you can either stay with us, or if for some reason you become a masochist and want to manage all of your own servers and do all of that all on your own and configure it all, you can get off of us and be, and not have to worry about completely rewriting your app or having to like gut out pieces of it because it was Heroku specific. We'll never ever give you anything that's, or force you into using something Heroku specific, right? So like App Engine, right? App Engine, like you have to kind of, you're stuck with what they give you and you have to do it their way and you can't just move away from them. So, yeah.
Do you have any limitations when it comes to gems, for instance, C extensions, stuff like that?
So if I do our discount, right? So that's our discount uses a C extension. So if I need to install that gem, you'll notice that it is building native extensions. So, so yes, you can run anything with like C extensions. So the cool thing about the .gems file is that you don't have to like vendor anything, right? I mean, Rails plugins, you definitely have to do that, but gems and stuff, you don't have to vendor them.
What about the version? Do you want to have a specific version? Can you specify
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I said earlier, when I was shown, if you look at the .gems file, right? It's just like, imagine you're typing gem install without gem install. Anything after that, source, version, you can say 1.0, right? I mean, just use -v, and then -s is for the source.
normal gem?
Yeah, it's just the normal gem switches. Yeah.
Can you push that .gems file locally, edit it locally, and then push it up with your guys' push deploy? Oh,
Yeah, that's what I just did. Yeah, you fill that file out, the manifest, and then that's what Heroku responds to that, sees it, and then installs all the gems at compile time.
Is there only one version of Ruby?
Right now, yes, 186. Yeah.
Can I push any of my branches to Heroku?
Yes, you can. It's Git. You just have to push it to master if you want it to deploy. You can push other remotes up there, but I don't see the reason to do that. I mean, that's what GitHub's for. Typically, branches are for collaboration and for, topic, work. But.
I'm a client, I can just start with this.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you need to do that, I mean, let's say you're working on a branch and you want to deploy it, right? So, like, working on foo, so I'm on the foo branch, right? What I would do is, I'd like whip, do all my work, right? And then you do git push Heroku, and then do foo master like that. So you're saying from to. So locally, my local foo branch up to the remote master, and then that's what will do it.
What about staging environment? Do you offer something?
Yeah. So I was trying to say something witty, but so Yeah, just do it this way. That's it. Just create another app.
Staging is running a different server with a different dyno?
Yeah, I mean, you might be on the same one as some of your others. You might not be. I mean, I don't know. You don't know. It's the exact same environment.
That's the same price as when you don't pay more for staging environment?
Well, not if it's only one dyno. So you're paying by app, right? So, I mean, I could have 13 apps, and I'm only paying for one because, 12 of them are just one dyno, 5 meg database apps, right, with no add-ons. So now I can say, because it added that remote for me, I can have git push staging master, right? And then this is going to push my master branch up to that staging, and now I've got staging server. Yeah. Oh, and real quick with that, so there it is, running, installing, loading, pushing. But with that, you can do the config add, and then set the rack environment or to staging, right? Because if you want your staging environment, and set your Rails environment if you want to, depending if you're using. And because there's multiple apps, I just need to say app, and then I forgot the app name, but you specify the actual app name there. So, yeah.
One of the things that I'm missing on Heroku is to run a debugger on the server. Sometimes there's differences.
A debugger.
Like just a Ruby debug. Yeah, like normally if I'm on my server, I can actually send a request and debug the request.
Right.
On the server.
Currently, I mean, like the closest thing I think you can get is Heruka Console, and what this does is load up a. I need to set my app. What was the app name here? Freezing Warrior 30. That's a good one. I like that. Heroku Console. Because I have multiple remotes. Actually, let's just fix this. I'm going to get rid of that remote. Not necessarily. I mean, you can do, like with, so now I'm inside a live dyno, right? I've got an IRB session that's inside of a live hot one. So don't do this, right? But, so you can run rack test in here and kind of emulate hitting it, but it's not actually a full request. So, yeah, you can run Heroku Logs. You can't tail-F them, but yeah, something's wrong with logs. But you can't tail-F them yet.
Was Heroku conceived before or after EC2 came along?
It was the idea. The founders, whenever they tell the story, the idea of it was before EC2. It was, man, deploying Rails apps sucks. Right? Like, in just deploying any app, like, in general, and managing servers sucks. So, and they kind of like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just do this? And then EC2 came around. So, in the early days of EC2, they were one of the first people to be using EC2. And that was how Heroku Garden was born. So, and then eventually that got scrapped, and then now we have Heroku.com. Anybody else?
What is that
Oh, this is getsh. Getsh is pretty awesome. Yeah, getsh. So git-sh. Just search for that on GitHub. But I use it because you can read the README, but there's a getsh. You can have a getsh-rc, and you can have git aliases. So all of these work inside of getsh. So like I have s mapped to git status, in is reset, right? And it's really nice because it says, like if I do a push. Like if I go HER and then tab, right? Like it does tab completion for remotes and all commands and stuff like that. So it's a really nice way to work. But if you need to run commands though in getsh, you typically have to say commands like rm. Otherwise, it actually runs the git rm. So if you actually want to use the real rm, not git rm. Yeah. Ryan always says, man, it's you got to be green, right? Like there's a lot of, you're using a lot of energy typing git all day long. So, I don't know. Is there any other questions? I mean, Any other demos? I'm trying to think if there's anything else cool I can show you.
I was kind of wondering, like, really that will Heroku like read your environment.rb and your big gem statements, or do you have to, or is there some way to generate the gems?
I'm trying to remember if we do that. I don't. It's been so long since I've done Rails. Currently, there's ways to do it. So I think actually I can't remember if we got it in production yet or not, but I think we run like rake gems for you or whatever.
Oh.
So it might not be in production yet though. So don't take my word for that, but you can play with it. Otherwise, you can just specify a dot. There's a gist out there somewhere of a guy who wrote like a rake task. Like you just install the gem and then you can say rake gems and it actually generates a gem manifest file for you. So, and then that way you can just add that, you can just update it that way. But that was kind of a workaround until we get that out into production. So.
When is it that you don't want to use Heroku? Is there a specific case where it's not appropriate?
Streaming, if you're trying to do streaming. We have a 30-second cutoff on all requests. So if your request goes longer than 30 seconds, which I think is really gracious of us to give you 30 seconds when, I mean, honestly, like you shouldn't have 30-second long requests, but obviously you will have 30 seconds if you're trying to do streaming, right? So, but if you're trying to do video transcoding or anything like that, I mean, I give a talk called Forget Kindergarten, Learn to Scale, and I talk about having your monster, right? And with Heroku, like use Heroku to manage your web stack. And then if you have something where you need streaming, or let's say you're doing video transcoding or some really heavy image processing, then fire up some EC2 instances. But those EC2 instances, keep them in the same zone as Heroku. And you have gigabit Ethernet, right? I mean, we're talking like, like microsecond, latency. Like there's almost no latency between the instances. And the bandwidth is free. You're not paying for that bandwidth, right? So,
are you running Heroku on EC2?
yes, it's on EC2. So you fire up the instances, and then you manage just that portion, right? Like that little baby, that Easter egg. What is your niche? Like, and that is your business anyway. Like that is something you should be managing yourself. But the web stack is a solved problem. We've already got it covered. And when you do it that way, what that allows you to do is you can scale out the monster, right? Or we call it like wrap the crap, right? Just put a nice API around it, and that can scale out completely independently of the web stack. So the web stack can stay nice and thin. Or small, and then let's say you're taking a lot of emails or doing some really heavy video transcoding on the back and that monster, and that can scale out. You can run that and scale that independently, right? So, but one really great example of that is Flightcaster. So Flightcaster.com. This is seeing that I've been to, like, I think it's like 16 cities in the past 2 months. This has been awesome, right? These guys run on Heroku, and they do flight delay prediction, right? And it's really pretty sick because I can go in and type before I even leave the hotel, I can just type in my route or my flight number if I know it, and it'll give me a probability of whether or not I'm going to be on time or not, right? So, but let me show you. So what they do is they're pulling all the FAA data down, right? And they do some serious data crunching on it. But they're not doing that on Heroku. They're doing that in using Hadoop and Cloudera, and they're managing some of their own instances to do that. So they fire up hundreds of them at a time, crunch all of this data, run all this like statistical analysis on it, and then bring it back down. And then they only have like a couple servers just kind of idling, waiting for the next batch of data to come in from the FAA. But you can tell, I mean, if we take a look here by route, I'm going from San Diego to LAX tomorrow. So I can say, and that's tomorrow. Should be able to find it. So you can see, I mean, it's like got all this information. And then, I don't know, I'll just pick one, right? And then it says, you're early for your flight. So, and it's, so it's giving me a chance probably on time, right? But it also uses, it's pretty cool because it uses weather data as well and history over time of that route for the time of year based on weather as well. So it's able to tell you, give you some really cool statistics on that. But yeah, I mean, they've got a really sophisticated system that figures all this out, but it's not running on Heroku. But they're taking advantage of everything they can on Heroku. I mean, they're using delayed job. They're maxing out delayed jobs. I mean, well, you really can't max them out on Heroku, but I mean, they fire up like, hundreds of them, let them just go to town, and then bring them back down. Another cool one that we're hosting is these guys just kind of showed up one day and they were like, hey, check this out. We're hosting this on Heroku. Have you guys seen Gem Cutter yet? Okay, gem cutter is like, for those of you who haven't seen it, gem cutter is like the only way to host Ruby gems, right? Like, it's there. This is like, I personally will probably never put anything on RubyForge again, right? You'll just have to do -s gemcutter.org because it's this easy. It's like Heroku for gems, right? You just build out your gem manifest, compile your gem, and then just do git push your gem, right? Or I'm sorry, gem push your gem. Puts it up in a gem cutter under your account, and then now is a source for that. But what's really cool about this is that we have a read-only file system, right? So they're taking uploads, they're pulling these things up. They're using their temp directory, which is writable, but just like it says, it's temporary, right? But they take the gems out, open them up, inspect them, populate the database, create them, and then recompile it back together again, and then stick it up in S3. So now all of your gems that you're getting from Gemcutter are coming from S3, and it's a Sinatra app. The part that serves up the gems is a Sinatra app. So this is one of my favorites. But yeah, these guys are pretty cool too. So. But yeah, I mean, Heroku isn't limiting at all. I mean, I don't know, there's endless possibilities with it. Nobody's ever come to me with an application and said, I don't know if I can do this on Heroku. Do you think I can do this? I mean, I've never had to say no to anybody. I'm always like, well, let's think about that for just 1 second. And then now you can, huh? GitHub could have easily run on Heroku. In fact, we tried to get them to come over for a long time, but their new architecture was, there's a reason that the way they do things. So when Tom's going to come into that with later blog posts. But what I'm talking about right now about wrapping the crap and everything, you're going to see that in the blog post from GitHub. I mean, that's exactly what they wound up doing. So I think they were just a little weirded out about I/O on EC2. So, and because they do ridiculous amounts of I/O traffic, I still know that we could have easily handled them. But what are you going to do? So, yeah. Anybody else? Okay, one more, and then my throat is about shot. If you need SSL for a custom domain, you can have piggyback SSL with us. So, like if we were to go to Gemcutter, or let's go back to, so I mean, you can enable piggyback SSL, right? And then you can have SSL on a Heroku domain, and it's free, actually, I think. If not, it's really, really cheap. But if you need custom domain SSL, then you'll need to file a support ticket with us, and then we'll get you your own thing. That's the only thing you can't just say Heroku add-on add, right? Because like that actually takes us firing up an instance for you, like a personal routing mesh for you. So, and okay.